Hello all, welcome to Lee Technologies. This is a continuation of another session on AOL. So this is AOL Advanced session, like where we'll try to understand more about AOL components and how do we migrate also. Let's get into outline. We'll just try to understand the AOL components, and also we'll try to show you some set of AOL components like the user function menu, and also we'll try to show you how do you migrate them and what are the tools we require to download the LET files. So as we know that AOL is a module of Oracle eBusiness Suite, which is a very primary important module. And every other module depends upon the AOL. AOL is a foundation module, and some of the objects or components which comes part of AOL are user responsibilities, function, menu, request group, lookup. So there are lot many. Okay, so as a technical developer or even functional developer, you always need to have a clarity on these things. So you may doesn't need to develop any of these components, but at least you should understand what is the form, what is the function, what is the request group, what is the message. These all things we have to have a clarity on it. So the best thing for any developer to understand these things is try to do a hands on it. Okay, just try to work on your development instance. Just define the components. Don't try to delete any of the component ever. Don't try to modify any of the components ever. So that until unless you know something you're modifying it, don't try to update them. Okay, always try to create a new component so that will not harm any of these things, and try in your development instance if you are fresh to these AOL components. Don't try on at your production or maybe the UAT instances. That will affect many of the other people or even the business users. Okay, just always try on the development or the what you say, I can say test instances. If at all they are not much priority or doesn't impact your client. Now, so this is one of the very important hierarchy of the AOL components in the Oracle eBusiness Suite. So as a user, when you log in, let us say, assume that like you logged into a particular instance, the first thing you have to do is you have to provide the user credentials. Once you provide the user credentials, it will list down all the rest of responsibilities which a user is having access. Once it lists down all the responsibilities, for each responsibility, you will have a menu, parent menu. That parent menu may have submenus or it may have a function. That function is always linked to a form or OAF page. So nothing but if you observe here, right, it's always at the end for a user, he may have access to a particular form or a OAF page through the responsibility. So we'll try to show you the total set of things like how do you create them, what are the tables involved in, and also some set of simple examples in the migration. Okay. Now this is a simple example. Like here, if you observe, right. So now let us say if you're trying to understand this particular set of components, right. What you do is you have to don't try to do like what you do is try to create form, function, menu, responsibility, and user. Okay, because each depends upon the other. Now let us say if you want to create a responsibility, right, it requires a menu. If you want to create a menu, right, it requires a function. If you want to create a function, it requires a form. That's the reason what you do is try to create from the down to top. Okay, so then you'll get a clarity, like which has to be created first. Let us see if you're working on the eBusiness Suite for the first time. What I suggest you is just create a user. Okay, and try to assign the seeded responsibility to your user account. Okay, later on you'll try to understand how do you create the further components. Okay, so if you're working on the eBusiness Suite for the first time, create the user, assign some set of seeded responsibilities like application developer, system administrator, XML publisher administrator, as well as workflow. Assign these 4 responsibilities, and then log in with your user account, and then try to work on these particular components. So now let's get into one of the simple example. How do we create a form function, right? So here, if you observe the navigation, right, you should be an application developer. Navigate to application, and here click on form. So here, if you observe, what are we trying to do is we are assigning, we are creating a, we are like assume that you already have a FMX which is moved in your application purchasing application. So it all depends on when you are registering any component, right? Always have a careful observation on where you are copying your particular file. In this example here, if you observe, right, so considering that XXLTMP DPT form FMX is moved in this particular application, nothing but purchasing, right? Pivot top. And this is my user defined function, user form name, right? This is a form name. and this form has to be assigned to a function, that function has to be assigned to menu, and so on and so forth. Now, so here whenever you want to register any D2K form, the first step is you have to register it as a form, and whatever the registration information which you define in this particular window, right, this will get stored in this particular table, FND form underscore VL. This is not a table, it's a view link, it's like a view which is based on some set of other tables, but you can just use this particular view to get some information, like what is the information which you created and all those things, right? This is how you can register a form. Now the next step is, like, when you first you register a form, then you have to create a function. This function has to be assigned to a menu. Now for the previous form which we created, we are creating a function for it, right? And whenever you want to create a function for a form, first of all you have to create a form and then create a form function, right? So here if you observe, right, this is the one, the function I selected function here. I need to mention the function name, and to this function I have to assign the form name, right? And all the information will be available in this particular form function table, right? Now similarly, like, I'll just try to show you a simple example for the OAF page. Here if you observe, right, so of course I'm in the system administrator, but you can also create from application developer. Some set of functionalities are available from system administrator as well as application developer, but some set of functionalities are available only from system administrator. Okay, have a careful observation on that. So here registration function is also available from application developer also, but I just want to show you that there are, like, this is available from system administrator also. That is the reason I just mentioned this one. So here try to understand that for each AOL component, always try to know the name of the table. So this may help you, like, when you are trying to work on the development instance, migrating it, registration scenarios, these all things will help you a lot. So most of the tables, if you observe carefully, it will start with FND followed by the appropriate component name, like FND function name, FND form name, FND menu, FND responsibilities. Everything will be based on the functionality. The table name is much similar that way. Okay, try to remember. Now the next thing is registration of a menu. So how do you register a menu? Go to application developer. In the application menu, click on menu. So it will open the menu. Here you just need to mention the menu, and you just need to mention what is a prompt for that, and also you have to mention what is the function you're assigning. Sorry, this screen got, yeah, sorry for this. Yeah, this was the one. Okay, you just need to assign the functions, which we created in our first step, right? Earlier step we just created some set of functions, right? Just need to assign the function. So the tables involved for the menus are FND menus and FND menu enters. These are the main tables for the purpose of menus. Okay, so like, generally, like, these kind of things are very much helpful when you're working on upgrade project as well as support projects. In upgrade projects, what happens is you want to find out how many pages are registered for a custom menu, custom responsibility, what are the custom components registered for a particular responsibility or a menu, right? So, or let us say if you're trying to bidding for a particular support project, you have to understand what are the custom components are created, under which menu, how many functions you have. These all things, to understand all those things, to prepare a repository of all those things, you need to have a clarity on these particular tables. Okay, so here if you observe carefully, I have used FND menus table, FND menu enters table to get the information about what is my menu name and what are the functions which are assigned to this particular menu. And the same way, I'll try to show you how do you register a responsibility. For registering responsibility, you require to have a system administrator responsibility. Until unless you have a system administrator responsibility, you cannot create a responsibility. Okay, navigate to system administrator responsibility, go to security responsibility and define. From there you can register a responsibility. For registering a responsibility, the major important thing is you require to have a menu. So here if you observe, I have assigned the menu which we created in the earlier step, and the remaining information just I went with the default. And here if you observe, this particular query is displaying what is my responsibility name, what is my menu name, and what are the functions which are assigned to this particular menu, right? So if you observe, we have been using the tables, like I've been joining the tables from one by one. And the next thing is assigning the responsibility to the user. So here if you observe, the table which I've used is FND user responsibility group direct. So using this particular table, I was able to retrieve how many responsibility this user is having access. So here I could get what is my username, what is my responsibility name, and what is my responsibility name. And also same way you can get all the remaining information if you join the earlier tables to this one. Okay, so here we just try to understand the basic set of components, not all the old components I was able to define, but the basic set of things like a user, form, function, menu, and responsibility. Okay, Now let us understand about how do we migrate these particular things. So the first thing is, let us say if you're working in the e-business suite for the first time, you may not have clarity what do you mean by migration. So the migration is nothing but when you're developing any component, so generally any of the project will always have a life cycle. So nothing but it will always start with the development, and then it goes to your SIT phases, nothing but system integration testing phases, and then the UAT, pre-prod, mock, as well as production. So the number of instances may vary depending upon the client and your environment, right? So generally, you at least bare minimum you'll have 3 instances. Okay, at the maximum it can be 5 or more than 5 also, but generally at least 3 instances will be there. One is development, testing, and production. So as a developer, we always work in the development instance. In the development instance, like what you do is once you define your components and once you perform the unit testing, nothing but you will be testing some components which you have designed. That is called unit testing. Once you have designed the particular components, you'll be sending those components for verification to the other maybe like for the functional users, or maybe QA people, QA team. So once the QA team or functional team verifies your component, that has to be migrated to another instance. But how do you send your components for testing to the QA team or functional team is, you like whatever the things which you are defining in your development instance, that has to be uploaded into the testing instance. So generally, like let us say if it is 1 or 2 components, you may register them manually. But if it is an implementation project, you may have around 100 plus components, and we can't manually migrate the components. Nothing but we can't manually create the components there. What we have to do is whatever the objects which you created, you have to download the trans what do you have to download the definition of those particular content, and you have to upload those particular definition. That is what we call it as loaded data file. Nothing but whatever the registration, what are the components which you have registered, right? So we need to just download this particular data, and we have to upload that information. But let us say if you have created a PL/SQL program, right? So we have to migrate your PL/SQL component from a particular instance to another instance, nothing but development to testing instance. How do you do it? So you get your SQL file and upload that particular SQL file to another instance. But let us say you have defined a concurrent program in the development instance, but how do you migrate it, right? So for migrating a concurrent program, first of all, you have to download the LDT file for that, and the downloaded LDT file should be uploaded into the target instance. I'll show you a few examples on, like how do you migrate a user. Now here, if you observe this particular command, for most of the 90% of the AOL components will have this particular syntax. Some of the components may have a different syntax, like if you consider the OAF page registration, or maybe if you consider the XML publisher registration or AME registration, you will have a little bit difference, but the concept is the same. Nothing but downloading the definition, downloading the registration definition, and uploading the registration definition. So here, for majority of the components, you'll have this particular syntax, FNDLOAD, followed by this is a apps user, database apps user schema name as well as password, and followed by 0. We have to go with the default y and go with the default, and here you have to mention the command download. And here, if you observe carefully, go with this particular C. And here the only difference is this particular LCT command depends upon whatever the component which you want to download. This LCT stands for loader control file. This is provided by Oracle, and followed by the LDT file. This is a user defined data file. You have to mention whenever you execute this command, right, into which particular file you want to download the definition. So this is a user defined file, and followed by the same again, these all commands, fnd user underscore name is equal to mention for which user you want to download the definition. So for the user xxlt, I want to download this particular definition. So that's what I have mentioned here. If you want to upload, right, it's almost similar command. Only thing is you just need to mention the input. Like here you have to mention upload, and here you have to mention the LDT file which you want to upload. So let me just get to my Unix instance. I'll show you one simple example. Right. So here, if you observe, right, so in the target environment, what you do is, first of all, in the source environment, first of all, go to your Unix box. Okay, now I'm at this particular location. So in the Unix box, always make sure that you have appropriate permissions. Until unless you have permissions, you cannot execute a command, right? So I'm at this location which is having 777 permissions, and also I have executable permissions for my FNDLOAD command. So now, if you want to know whether you have FNDLOAD command execution or not, just type FNDLOAD. If it provides some information like enter username, password, and everything, it means that you have a permission. But if it says command not found, it means that you don't have permission. So ask your DBA to get the permission for that. Now, one simple example is, let us say, how do I download the LDT for menu, right? So I just copied this command. Okay, just paste here and press enter, right? So this particular execution of this command generates some set of files. So now I'm at this directory, right? Home Apple Manager Sridhar. So go to that particular directory, refresh the refresh this particular window, and open the LET file which got downloaded. Okay, right click here, click on edit. Now just try to read it, partial information. So here, if you observe carefully, right, at the last, you'll try to see that some information which we have defined in our registration, nothing but for this particular menu, right? So here, if you observe, I could see that some set of prompts which are similar to the form, which are similar to the content which we use for registration, right? So whatever we have to use for registration, that will be downloaded in this particular file. So this particular file will be used as an input in the target environment for creating the menu in the target environment, right? So instead of developer creating them manually, so Oracle is providing a utility. You can download the definition and just upload the definition in the target instance. So there are many benefits with respect to this particular function. The first thing is you will reduce the errors, time saving, right, reusability, and many more. So try to do a hands-on on the FNDLOAD. It doesn't need to remember this FNDLOAD command because the LCT file changes for every particular AOL component. It doesn't need to remember this. You just Google it, or you try to use any of the Oracle developer guides. You'll get the total syntax of this. Only thing is, you just need to have a clarity on it. Nothing but if you're downloading LDT for user, you have to use this particular LCT file. Let us, if you're downloading LDT for the menu, you have to use another LCT file. If you observe, right, AFS load is my LCT file for the menu. But let us say for this one, it is AFS CURSP. So always be careful. Try to analyze carefully that, like when you have downloaded any LDT file, just try to always open the LDT file and just check it out, the content. Because sometimes what happens is a human psychology, right? We just execute and we just think that everything is working fine, because it will clearly not mention, it will not give any error, right? Unless you clearly validate your LDT file, you'll not find out what is the error. It is very critical during migration. You'll face lot number of issues unless you validate the LDT file carefully. So try to work on, I mean to say, like as of now in this particular session, I just could show you only a few examples, but what you can do is you'll get LDT commands very easily. Just search with appropriate respective commands and get the appropriate LDT files and download, and try to work on the development environments first. That's the best thing to work on. Okay, so as a developer, what are the tools you require? Is the first thing is you should have a eBusiness suite instance, and before that, and also try to have this notepad utility, notepad plus utility, and you require WinSCP, PuTTY, and even basic set of Unix commands you require, like a creation of a directory, creating of a file, removing a file, and changing the directories, and changing the permissions. You require these set of particular Unix basics to work on this particular AOL migration, right? So please do subscribe to my channel. Please do provide your valuable comments. I hope this particular session will provide you some set of basic inputs on the AOL module. Thank you.